나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. I'm going to do two videos. A lot of times I put these together and then you can't find the subject. So this brief video is about a question that I get asked from time to time, either about Butsudans or the beads, and where to get them. These are a set of beads that I use day to day. They're wood beads that I stained myself. The cord, the components of which I have videos on the beads, so you can. And I've got a PDF on the threefoldlotus.com site. It has all the various parts of Lotus Sutra, Buddhism, Nichiren doctrine beads, so that you can make your own. But, as you know, I also have these are the fancy ones. And I wear these specifically for ceremonies, like I do weddings, I do memorials for the deceased. These are all stone, and they've got the long tassels, and I made them as beautiful as I knew how, with all the same components, but with just the fancy beads. One thing I can tell you from personal experience. Not too long after my first couple of years of practicing Lotus Sutra Buddhism, a lot of the members, a lot of the people that I knew that I was learning from were either Japanese or people who had been practicing a long time, or people who had some or enough wealth, more than me, who had these gorgeous Butsudans. Some were old, traditional, deep boxes with many stages. Some were very modern and huge with electric doors and all of that. And I thought, I've always been this way about everything. It's not that I want the most this or the most that or the most impressive this. I always want something to impress me, to identify me. Is that ego? Of course, everything's ego, but is it? I don't want to impress anyone else. I just want to feel that I'm cultivating, especially my enlightenment, from my own self-respect, dignity, if you will. So, that's always a complicated equation of ego versus Buddha-ness, truth versus desire versus, human beings. We're a mess that way. This is why we practice Buddhism, so we can unmess ourselves, So all of that ties into the fact that my first Butsudan, no matter how clever my design was and how cool it was, whether it was the affordability of the materials I used or the struggles I had trying to get things to work the way I expected them to, I'm a furniture builder. I won't say I'm, a high-end furniture builder that requires expensive woods and tooling and blah, blah, blah. But, I know my way around wood construction pretty good. And I have a very respectable experience with hand tools and power tools, and I do well. But that first Butsudan was a struggle. And when I got done with it, all I could see were the things that I fell short on. Other people saw it and went, wow, I had a sensor for the lights to go on when I entered the room so that, I was always inspired to go chant. The hard thing to do when you begin, yeah? And a very older Japanese lady told me, was it me? Anyway, they don't recommend people build their own Butsudans or any of the accoutrements of our practice because that cause is so profound that it will raise karma that you may not be altogether prepared to challenge. And I built another Butsudan. I sold that first one pretty cheap. And she was very happy to have it. Took her 3 years or so, more than that, to pay for it. But it wasn't about the money, right? It was about making somebody else happy and moving on. After making the first one, I was already thinking how I could do so much better, not get so complicated and showy, and not to show off to others, but to show off to myself, right? To make mine special. Ego. Finally, I whittled down my Butsudan designs so that they were an altar for the mandala. Very simple designs. And there's an elegance in that, and it's not easy. It betrays your sense of complexity when you try to make something straightforward and simple. And I made a few in that vein, and the more I made, the better they turned out. And there was a greater sense of unity with my mandala and my practice, but it was very cathartic. And years went by, and then I built this huge Butsudan that you see behind me. And there's some complexity to that. I don't show it closed very often. I think in the beginning of the videos you can get some glimpses at it closed. And there's some complexity to it, but it's not as complex as it looks. It's very simply constructed. It's just massive. And so it wasn't until many years later that I decided that I don't have huge hands, but, maybe they're just clumsy as I get older. But the beads I was using, even though I was getting the largest beads I could at the supply venues, right? I wanted some big beads. I wanted to feel the meat of the 108, the bodhisattvas, all the components of the beads. And I also wanted to stop a nasty habit I'd picked up from some older Japanese folks of rubbing the beads all the time. It's kind of annoying. And it's not really, it comes from the old idea that you're rubbing your bodhisattva beads through your 108 desires to purify them. So it's not that I never do it. It's just that I wanted to curb it a little bit, yeah? I don't want to sit there doing incantations, right? I wanted to focus on my daimoku, my Buddha-ness, and maybe in a break, maybe during Gangyo, there'd be a moment where I'd strike them once, so that I'd have that idea that I was clearing my mind, clearing my karma, right? Cleansing. So I thought I need to make my own beads. Well, folks, there was a whole new set of karma that I hadn't realized I still needed to modify deep within me, because making beads, any of you out there jewelers or necklace makers, bead makers, you know right off the bat there are stresses and material choices and on that make what looks like a simple endeavor far more specialized than one might think. But apart from that, karmically, because of the cause of making these things, it took a long time. So all of this is to answer Emil. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I was not able to find large beads anywhere. But I knew that abbots had them. They were available somewhere. And then I thought, well, maybe that's just part of the process of becoming a more, in the hierarchy of monks, one of those things that you do, like copying the sutra or, memorizing, like gongyo. Maybe making your own beads is part of the process, the day-to-day samsaric process of challenging your karma and being a more deeply committed student, monk, right? Part of the practice. And so I set about creating sets of beads. I failed several times. Failure you can measure any way you want, but the bottom line is, even these beads, one day while I was doing a video here, they just sort of disassembled on me. The string that I had used, the cord that I had used simply had effriché. How do you say that in English? It had come apart, and all the beads ran out onto the floor. Some stayed on me. I didn't even notice right away. It must have looked interesting on the video. I don't know what video it was, sorry. But I had to rebuild these. And I remember when I built what I'll call my ceremonial beads, these are all built with stones. And with my fingers and arthritis, that itself, because of the weight and myriad things, presented its own challenges. But all that said, I'm extremely at one with these beads. I don't feel like I'm wearing or using some outside. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that these are mine so they're better. It's more that I know these beads, every single one. And when I chant and I use these beads, it's like using my own hands, my own fingers, rather than a pair of gloves or somebody else's hands, not to sound too weird. But so I would say to you, Emil, if you really want to have large beads like this, you're going to have to do your research, look at online on my videos and on the threefoldlotus.com site. Educate yourself on the beads, the meanings of everything. It's really a journey. It reintroduces you to your practice, whether it's a Butsudan or beads. It is your practice. So if the materials you use for your practice are of your own intimate, effort, then perhaps there's a special connection there. Not all of us are that way. I freely admit that I am that way. I don't look at it as look what I did, or mommy, I built my beads. Not that kind of ego. It's more that, I don't know, I've always had this sense about what I do must be clear and of my own instantiation, my own path, my own will, my own actions. And so, and this is nothing against any one of you who go out and purchase from someone else, support, in other words, somebody else's effort to make something beautiful and use that. Like the video I did that talked about Catherine in, oh, Catherine, I apologize. I'm going to pick the wrong country. I always get them confused. Anyway, she sent me a beautiful set of beads, yes? And I talked about them in a video. And you can get your beads from her, write her a letter, go to her website, go email her, right? And that is incredibly satisfying because you're supporting another who's building the beads correctly to our practice. And that's, that's great. I've got a different quirk. For me, for all that beauty, I'll collect them because they're beautiful. But for my practice and my enlightenment, my path, my sense of enlightenment, I don't know. My fingers need to be in that grease. It needs to be of my own making. It's a strange, I recognize it in myself, but I also recognize that very impetus has forced me to challenge my own karma. And so I think I've made great gains from it. Maybe that's relative to the problem in the first place, if it's a problem. Anyway, that's all of this video is to tell you, if you feel inspired to make your own Butsudan, to put together your own beads, please make sure that you're doing it within the parameters of the practice. Don't go introducing, an anime character into the doors of your Butsudan. Don't go introducing, glitter bombs and little vials of blood into your beads, because I know you. And some of you want to drag all your earthly little desire, passion plays into your Buddhism. No. That is the biggest no-no problem in this kind of an endeavor. And this is why it's not promoted. We have a tendency, ego again, to put of our samsaric attachments into our Buddhism. And all you're doing is crapping all over Buddhism. You're shunting yourself from your Buddha nature, because now you're worshiping. Now you're worshiping the thingness of samsara. Danger, Will Robinson. Do not do that. You should be looking for purity, simplicity, an echo of Shakyamuni, not you. Do you see? Do you understand? So I caution you, these are great endeavors, very karma-busting efforts, but they're only karma-busting if your ichinen, if your will, if your resolve, if your confidence is in Buddha-ness, not in me-ness. These aren't me. These are, as clear as I can perceive it, my karmic cleansing toward my Buddha-ness, right? The Buddha beads. And me in there, tied right next to it. My enlightenment. So please hear me. That's why I posted this material on threefoldlotus.com and in a video, so that you do not deviate And what's deviate? Deviation, right? It's impure. It's other. It's not what you want here. So yeah, Emil, if you're looking for large beads, I don't know. At one time I thought I might offer handmade beads since I succeeded, as a way to help support the Sangha, for people to purchase them from me, or some other means for you to get them through me. But that's not what I am. I'm not a manufacturer. I'm not a jeweler. This is part of my practice. This I made to support my dedication to my clear karma, to my Buddha practice. Yeah? And so why would I endeavor to put that on you? It's your practice. You need to do it if you think you're ready, or when you think you're ready. You know, if you try and you fail, that's okay. The effort in itself is a dedication to your practice. So go ahead, give it a shot. If you succeed, email me a picture. I'd love to see them. Of course, I'll be critical, not of how well you did, but that you stuck to the program, that you have the 108, the Bodhisattva beads, that you haven't cluttered your own little vices into it. Do not do that. So that's the worst thing you could do. Okay? So download the document, watch the videos. If you make a Butsudan, use clean materials, take your time, and keep it simple. Yeah. I hope this was helpful. I hope I answered some questions. And mostly, I hope that it helps you feel confident about your practice. Thanks. I'll let you go. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.